They were inseparable since childhood. From scraped knees to first dances, he was her world, and she was his home. Everyone thought they were soulmates. Maybe they were. But on the night, he planned to tell her he loved her. Her mother said 5 words that shattered everything. "He's your stepbrother now, Talia." And just like that, the love she'd waited her whole life to confess became the one truth she could never speak. But some love doesn't die, it hides. And what happens when it refuses to stay buried? The day Elijah moved in, Talia felt something shift. She didn't know what was, just that it was quiet and heavy, like the kind of silence that knows your name. He stood there in the hallway, a skinny boy with a chipped box of books and eyes too tired for someone so young. His mother gave a forced smile, but it stayed buried somewhere behind his ribs. Talia was only 8, but she felt it, some ache in him that made her want to understand, protect, follow. She watched from behind the crack of her door as he walked past. She memorized the way he didn't look back. And somehow, even in that moment, she knew he wouldn't be just a neighbor. They didn't talk much, not at first. But over the weeks, words became irrelevant. Their friendship was built from glances across stairwells, moments spent trading songs through old headphones, and quiet afternoons on a rooftop where the city buzzed beneath them like a forgotten lullaby. Talia found peace in Elijah's presence. He didn't try to impress, didn't pretend to be whole. He just showed up and stayed. One day, she brought him half a sandwich and said nothing. He accepted it without thanks, but the way he looked at her afterward, she still remembered it. Like gratitude had no language, only eyes. Even at 11, she didn't know the name for it, but she knew it felt like home. The fire didn't start loud. It crept, curling like a whisper beneath the stove before it screamed. Talia was home alone, her mom working late, her brother at school. The smoke slithered in and panic followed fast. She tried to open the door, but it was too hot. She screamed, cough hit the walls. And then, Elijah, he broke into the back window, like it was nothing, like fire didn't scare him. She couldn't see his face through the smoke, but his arms found her, wrapped her in his hoodie, dragged her through the chaos. Outside, the sirens wailed, but the only sound she really heard was his breathing. Fast, desperate, alive. That was the night he saved her. Not just from a fire, but from a life without him. They weren't kids anymore. The rooftop talks had turned into midnight walks. Glances lasted longer. Touches lingered. On Myrtle Avenue, under a flickering street lamp, Elijah stopped. The city hummed around them, cars, voices, the thud of bass from a nearby club. But in that moment, there was only breath. "If I kiss you," he whispered, "will everything break?" Talia didn't flinch. She stepped closer. "Only if you don't." And then it happened. A kiss, hesitant yet full, like all the years they spent pretending it wasn't love had finally cracked. Neither of them knew what was coming. Neither knew that the truth had been waiting for the perfect moment to ruin everything. It was a drawer she was never meant to open. Her mother had stepped out for groceries, and Talia was just looking for an envelope. Something harmless. But the drawer slid open too easily, like it wanted her to find it. Inside, faded photos, an old Polaroid of Elijah's mom with Talia's father. Her stomach flipped. Beneath it, a letter, creased at the edges, barely held together. To Linda from David. It read, her father's name, her mother's name, Elijah's mother's name. And suddenly, the fire that once burned in her lungs returned, not from smoke this time, but from something worse. Truth. Ugly, irreversible truth. She sat alone on the edge of her bed, the letter trembling in her hands. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable. "Elijah is mine," it read. "And I never stopped loving her, but I couldn't abandon you." The words cut through everything, memories, moments, kisses. Her mind spiraled back. Elijah's silence, the things he never said about his dad, the odd way their moms avoided each other. The puzzle pieces weren't just falling into place. They were crashing. This wasn't heartbreak. It was betrayal. Not from Elijah, but from the adults who built their lives on lies and secrets. She didn't speak to him for days. He knocked, called, left notes. She ignored them all, not because she hated him, but because she didn't know how to love him anymore. How do you unfeel something so real? How do you kill a love that never asked to be born wrong? When they finally crossed paths in the stairwell, the silence was deafening. Elijah's eyes searched hers like they were looking for air. "What happened?" he asked. Talia shook her head. "You don't want to know." But he did, and when she told him, his knees buckled. He leaned against the railing, not from exhaustion, but because the truth had knocked the ground out from beneath them both. They sat across from each other at the basketball court. Empty bleachers, the hum of faraway traffic, the smell of damp concrete. No one else was around, just the two of them and everything they now knew. Elijah didn't cry. Talia did. "I didn't know," he kept repeating. "I didn't either," she whispered. The space between them felt like a canyon. What were they now? Not lovers, not strangers, not even friends. Something in between. Something no language could hold. And yet, she still loved him. That was the cruelest part. Love, it seemed, didn't care about biology. But life did. Life had boundaries. And they had just crashed into them. The next Sunday, they sat at the same dinner table. Elijah, Talia, their mothers, now more strangers in family. No one spoke much. Forks clinked against plates. The room was full of shadows, even with the lights on. Talia stared at her mom, tried to find the woman who once braided her hair and kissed her forehead goodnight. But all she saw was someone who'd chosen silence over truth. Elijah kept his head down, pushing food around like a child trying to make sense of something that couldn't be swallowed. They weren't a family. They were a collection of secrets pretending to be one. At 2:07 a.m., Talia slipped out the door with nothing but a hoodie and her keys. The city was asleep, but her thoughts were wide awake, screaming. She ran, not away from Elijah, but from the version of her life that no longer made sense. Streetlights flickered above her as she weaved through empty sidewalks, tears stinging her eyes, fists clenched. She had loved him too deeply, trusted her mother too blindly, and now she didn't belong anywhere. Not in that apartment, not in that family, not even in her own skin. She ran until the pain in her chest outran the one in her heart. She ended up on the rooftop again, the same place where everything once felt simple. The wind bit her skin, but she didn't care. She curled into herself, knees to chest, staring at the building across the street. Elijah's room still had the light on, a soft yellow glow behind half-drawn blinds. She could almost see him pacing, probably thinking about her, about the letter, about the kiss they shouldn't have shared. That light was a lifeline, a reminder that he was still there, still breathing, still hers. Even if the world said he couldn't be, she wished she could turn back time, back to when he was just a boy across the hall. Elijah found her the next morning, still on the roof, shivering. He brought her a blanket and didn't say a word at first. Then finally, "My mom told me everything." His voice cracked. "He didn't even know I was his. Not until you were born." Talia turned to him, eyes raw. "Then why let us fall into this?" He didn't answer. He couldn't, because there was no answer, just pain passed down like inheritance. They weren't victims. They weren't sinners. They were just two kids who loved each other before the world told them it was wrong. And now, The weight of truth had made them heavy, too heavy to hold each other anymore. For weeks, they avoided each other, like two magnets forced to repel. But love, real love, doesn't disappear on command. It lingers in doorways and shared playlists. It echoes in empty hallways, in the scent of someone's hoodie, in the silence between two bedrooms only a wall apart. Talia caught glimpses of Elijah through cracked doors and late-night fridge runs. And sometimes he looked at her like he still saw the girl he used to laugh with. The world had changed, but their feelings hadn't gotten the memo. That was the cruelest part, knowing that even though they couldn't go back, their hearts hadn't moved forward. Her birthday came and went. No text, no knock, not even a whisper from Elijah's room. Talia blew out the candles alone with her mom, pretending it didn't matter, but her chest felt like it was caving in. Every year, he was the first to wish her. Every year, he made her laugh so hard she forgot her age. But this year, silence. At midnight, she found herself at the door of his room, hand raised to knock. But she couldn't. She returned to her room and cried into the same pillow he once teased her about. Some heartbreaks don't scream. They ache quietly. In her journal, Talia wrote him letters she'd never send. Dear Elijah, I still dream of us before the truth, before our names felt cursed. Every word bled onto the paper like a wound reopened. Some nights, she'd reread them, wondering if he could feel her ache through the walls. Meanwhile, Elijah stared at his blank screen, fingers hovering over her name his phone, but he never pressed send. Words were easy before. Now they felt dangerous. Each one could crack the fragile peace they were trying to build, or worse, reignite what they had no right to feel. The rain came hard one afternoon, flooding the streets and forcing everyone indoors. But Talia couldn't stay in, not when her heart was unraveling. She ran into it, bareheaded, soaked within seconds. Elijah saw her from his window. He chased after her, yelling her name through thunder. When he caught up, she turned to him, tears mixing with rain. I wish we didn't know, she said. He didn't ask what she meant. He already knew. He stepped closer, forehead against hers, both drenched and shaking. Me too, he whispered. The sky roared above them, but the storm between them was louder and far more dangerous. They sat side by side on a park bench, the rain finally gone but their clothes still damp. Neither spoke for a while. The silence was almost louder than their hearts. Elijah reached for her hand, but stopped an inch away. Talia looked down, eyes full of everything they couldn't say. We could lie to ourselves, she said softly. Pretend we're just two people in love. He shook his head, a bitter smile on his lips. But we're not. A car drove by. A dog barked in the distance. The world kept moving, but they were frozen, trapped between what they wanted and what they couldn't have. The next morning, she found a folded note taped to her mirror. Elijah's handwriting, sharp, slanted, familiar. If this is the last thing I get to say, I loved you before I even knew what love meant. You were never a mistake. We just came too close to a truth that broke everything. Talia read it 3 times before sitting on the floor, her back against the door, holding the letter to her chest like it might stop her heart from breaking. There were no more what-ifs, only the echo of what had been, and the cruel knowledge that some love stories were never meant to be written in full. They used to share music like secrets. Elijah would send her tracks with no message, just melodies that said everything he couldn't. One night, she played their old playlist. The first song hit, like a memory crashing into her chest. Don't play it, her mom said from the hallway, voice tight. Please. Talia paused it. The house was too quiet now. No laughter, no music under their doors, no low giggles at midnight. Elijah no longer played guitar in his room. It was like their soundtrack had died the moment their truth was born. Some silences aren't peaceful. They're just haunted. Talia saw him at the train station, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Her heart dropped. Elijah was leaving. She ran to him, breath caught in her throat. "You're not even going to say goodbye?" she asked, voice trembling. He turned, eyes red. "I didn't want to make it harder." Around them, people rushed by, oblivious to the moment crumbling between two almost lovers. "Where will you go?" she whispered. "Anywhere I can forget," he said. But they both knew forgetting was an option. As the train roared in, Talia held his gaze. And for the first time, she didn't chase him. She let him go. The house felt emptier after Elijah was gone. Not because of his absence, but because of the weight it left behind. His room stayed untouched. Door closed. Light off. Talia walked past it every morning like it was a grave. Her mother acted like nothing had happened. Smiled too wide. Cleaned too much. But grief leaves fingerprints, and they were everywhere. On the cold doorknobs, on the stairs they used to race up, on the empty spot at the dinner table. Talia stopped singing in the shower. Stopped drawing. Love hadn't just broken her heart. It had stolen her rhythm. Talia typed out messages she never sent. "Are you okay? I miss you. Do you think about me too?" Each time, she hovered over the send button, then hit delete. Some nights, she'd scroll through their old chats just to feel close to him. The inside jokes, the late-night confessions, the innocent beginnings that now felt like betrayal. She told herself time would help, that silence was healing. But in the quiet of her room, under the glow of her screen, she realized healing had a cruel sense of time. It came slowest when you needed it most. One rainy afternoon, Talia found an old box in Elijah's closet while helping her mom pack his things. Inside his sketchbook, a broken watch, and a journal. She hesitated, fingers trembling, before opening it. Page after page, her name, her laugh, her habits, drawings of her asleep on the couch, lists of songs he wanted her to hear, poems he never dared read aloud. Every entry was a love letter he never gave her. The final page read, "If things were different, she'd be my forever." She clutched the journal to her chest, eyes flooded. She wasn't crazy. It was real, and it had always been. She screamed into her pillow that night, not out of anger, but out of the unbearable weight of love that had nowhere to go. She wanted to punch something, cry until it stopped hurting, rewind time and rewrite the ending. The world had taken something so pure and labeled it forbidden. She didn't choose the story. Neither did he. But they were trapped in it like characters in a book written by someone cruel. And now, she was left with pieces, memories too bright to throw away and too painful to keep. Love had bloomed in her heart like a wildfire and left only ash. One evening, over dinner, Talia finally asked a question that had haunted her since the day everything unraveled. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice was low, but it shook like glass. Her mom froze, the knife mid-slice through her roast. "Tell you what?" she asked, though they both knew. "About Elijah, about us being siblings, step or not." Her mother sighed, then sat down slowly. "I didn't think it mattered until it did." Her hands trembled. "You two looked so happy, and I didn't know how to break that." But it had broken, and now there was nothing left but spilled wine and shattered trust. The first snow of winter fell quietly, painting the world in white. Talia stood outside, coat unzipped, hair catching snowflakes like memories. She remembered how Elijah used a joke that snow made everything feel possible, like the world could be rewritten overnight. But this year, it just made everything feel colder. The street lights flickered. Kids laughed somewhere down the block. But for her, time moved differently now. Every snowflake, reminded her of what was lost, of what was almost hers. She closed her eyes and whispered into the falling silence, "Wherever you are, I hope it's warmer than this." Weeks passed. Then one day, as she walked home from school, she heard it. Soft guitar chords drifting through the air. Her heart stopped. That melody, it was theirs. She turned the corner, expecting a stranger, a trick of memory. But it was him, Elijah, sitting on the porch of an old friend's house, fingers dancing over strings like nothing had changed. Their eyes locked. Time collapsed. Her chest ached with everything she wanted to say. But neither moved. The music spoke for them. And when he finished the song, he stood slowly, nodding once, like a goodbye wrapped in a promise. They met that night under the old bridge, the one where they'd once carved their names into stone. No one spoke at first. The air buzzed with words too delicate for sound. Finally, Elijah said, "I've tried forgetting. It doesn't work." Talia's eyes welled up. "So what now?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small stone. Familiar. Their names were still etched into it. "We write something new," he whispered, "even if it's not what we wanted." And as the wind howled around them, they sat together. Two broken hearts choosing to heal, even if it meant apart. In the weeks that followed, Talia began writing again, not text messages, not diary entries, but letters. To Elijah, each one started with, "I hope you're okay." Some were angry, some were soft, but all of them were honest. She kept them in a wooden box beneath her bed, tied with red string. Her therapist said it was a way to let go, but she wasn't letting go. Not really. She was keeping pieces. Not because she couldn't move on, but because what they had mattered, because it deserved a place in her story, even if the world didn't understand it. Years passed. College came. New cities. New faces. But on clear nights, when the sky bloomed with stars, Talia would lie on her back and whisper his name, not in longing, but in gratitude, because once she had loved someone with her whole heart. And even though life had rewritten the story, that love was real. It had changed her, strengthened her. Somewhere out there, under a different sky, Elijah might be doing the same, looking up and remembering her, not as a mistake, not as a secret, but as the girl who taught him what love felt like before the world told him it was wrong. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, feel, or remember someone you once loved deeply, don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button to join us for more stories that speak straight to the heart. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment like this again. Like this video if you believe love, no matter how complicated, still matters. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that healing is possible. And tell us in comments, have you ever loved someone only to realize fate had other plans? Your story matters, and we're listening.